It's time to get ready for week one. On today's show, we are talking week one real football action. I can't believe it's here. So we're going to get into some bold predictions. We're going to try to predict some of the waiver targets that are going to happen on Tuesday. We're going to give you our Super Bowl picks and any final thoughts we have heading into the season. So I'm not sure how you want to do this since we're live. I'll still do the welcome back. That was the teaser. Now we're doing the intro. Hi, every live person. Welcome back to the Fantasy Authority podcast. I'm Anthony Pinzone, and for the next hour, I will be joined by my friends Cody Kutzer and Kevin Steele as we get ready for week one of the regular season. How are we doing today, fellas?
Doing awesome, man. The world around me could be burning, and I could not care less. We have an actual game that counts in the NFL tomorrow, and I'm ecstatic.
I could not agree more. Finally, we made it. You know, no more of the hot takes, the ADP talk, all the craziness, the mock drafts, the Damian Williams. We're finally going to get the results to the test. So it's been fantastic, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. But yeah, how have you guys been since we've last spoken?
I can't complain. I mean, I'm pretty pumped. All my drafts were last weekend, which that's the best time of year, right? I mean, I know we do a ton of mock drafts and best ball and stuff, but when you get with your boys and you're in the room and the board's hanging over the fireplace or whatever, and you're putting the stickers up there and everybody's booing or cheering or whatever, I mean, there's no better time of year. I mean, that's fantasy season. It's over now, sadly, but the regular season starts.
And Anthony, I didn't know you were so fancy drafting at a fireplace.
Yeah. So my friend doesn't have a blank wall there. Like all the other walls are covered, so we just hang it over the fireplace and try not to poke a hole in it when we put our stickers on it.
And here I am drinking skunked beers at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, he's probably sitting there, drinking a nice cognac, and they're sitting there with their thumbs up, and who will we take next? And
actually, it's Bud Light Lime. That seems to be the drink of choice amongst the league members. So every year, the one member brings Bud Light Lime, and that seems to be the talk of the day.
Real quick, this is a very important question for both of you. What is the one thing during football season you have to have around you while you're watching football on Sundays, whether it be a food or a beverage? Like, what's the one thing that is always on deck?
Pizza and Coke.
Like, cocaine. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going crazy with it.
As you know, I'm not a drinker, so Coca-Cola is my drink of choice on football Sunday, and I always have a pizza. I feel like every weekend, so no weight loss happening during the season.
I basically have to, without a doubt, without question. Like every Sunday, I have to go. Well, either Saturday night or Sunday morning, I go to the store and I have to buy some sort of, whether it's wings or buffalo chicken dip or something. I have to make something every Sunday. It doesn't matter. Like I will lose my I don't feel comfortable. I can't just sit there and watch the game. Like I have to have like something cooking or making like a pot of chili or whatever. So I'm about that life. Like that is like my tradition. And then I sit there and tilt my face off all day as my DK lineups just crash and burn. But
well, it's a forever long day. I'm sure you guys like we're starting at, for me it's 1:00 and it's not ending until like midnight. So you got to have something to munch on or something to fiddle with or something to do, or else you just lose your mind all day.
Yeah, having buffalo chicken dip in the crock pot is clutch.
Oh, send me that recipe or how to do it, please. Thank you.
Oh, I will. I make it all the time. It is delicious.
Yes, I need that. By the way, if you guys want more great food takes, you can hit us up on Slack. The Slack channel is ever growing, and we're hoping that we can help you out this season by answering all your questions, start sits, lineup advice, who should you pick up, who should you drop, anything like that. Hit us up on Twitter at @FF_authority, or you can even ask here in the chat on tonight's live stream, and we will send you an invite to the Slack channel, and that way you can get in there. If you're a DFS player, we do have a DFS show, DFS DGen Nation. That will be live on Friday night this week, Kev?
This week we have Ryan has He's big time, old Ryan Williams, friend of the show, of this show, and he works for a radio station, and they do Bears games. So since the Bears play Thursday night, he has to be there. So we have to rearrange his schedule just for him. Just typical Ryan. It's the world revolves around him, and it's all his world, and we all just live in it. But yeah, no. Usually every Thursday nights we'll be live. Plus the pod will come out Friday for the DFS show. But this week it'll be tomorrow. It'll be Friday night where we're dropping the fire takes.
Yep, and the DFS channel in the Slack is actually very, very busy as well. So get in there, win your money, have some fun with it, and get really pissed off on every Sunday when your teams start to lose.
Yeah.
By the way, Kev, I wanted to ask you, so I want two different perspectives on this LeSean McCoy signing. I want your fan perspective, and I want your fantasy football perspective. So give me the fan perspective first.
They're actually the same. I think that he certainly has an impact on the offense. It definitely doesn't help Damian Williams, but I don't think it hurts at all as much as people think that it is. Like, people have been searching for a reason not to like LeSean McCoy this year, or Damian Williams. Like, if you're anti-Damian Williams, people have went out of their way to just find a reason not to like him. It started out with Carlos Hyde, and it was all offseason Carlos Hyde. Oh, you better watch out for Carlos Hyde, man. He's going to take the job from him. He's going to take the job from him. And then from there, it was Darwin Thompson. Once Darwin Thompson started, playing very well in the preseason, and it was a Darwin Thompson season. Everybody draft Darwin Thompson. Damian Williams is toast. And then one day that they trade for, or they signed LeSean McCoy, and it's all offseason. LeSean McCoy was dead, washed, and now he gets signed with the Chiefs, and now he's back and he's the man.
So aren't you excited to see if he has anything left though? I mean, this is one of the most dynamic runners that we've seen in the NFL.
He is, but I mean, and I don't think that he is. I think he's still probably better than what Carlos Hyde is right now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't think that he's not going to come in and just be the starter. Like Damian Williams is a legit 3-down back with. We saw it, and we already see it in the preseason exactly what he did last year with the Chiefs. That explosive 64-yard reception that he had for a touchdown. Like, that's what he brings to the table. They're not going to throttle that back. And I think people got confused because I think people thought like Damian Williams was going to be some 20-plus touch guy. He's not. The running backs last year, I think, averaged like 24 touches a game for the Chiefs, and that's like collectively. That's not just one player. So that was never going to be in his range of outcomes of what he was going to do. And I think a lot of people thought that's what was going to happen with him, and that's just not the case. Like, I think he's more of a 15 to 17 touch type of player. But in this offense, that you don't need that much. Like, he can average 15, 16, 17 fantasy points per game with that and have some really boom weeks. That's coming. That's still happening. I think this is really what this did is killed Darwin Thompson. Darwin Thompson's dead. Like, he's not going to have a role this year barring an injury now, because there's no way that all three of them are going to get that kind of workload. And so, like, can LeSean McCoy have some flex weeks? Yeah, I think LeSean McCoy is going to he's going to get touches too. And but overall, like, I think this may mildly would drop down. Like, if we still had more time to go until the season started, Damian Williams, like, maybe a round. But like, you shouldn't like fly off the handle and think that Damian Williams now is like a 7th round pick or something like that. And LeSean McCoy's all of a sudden been rejuvenated. Somebody hit him with the EpiPen and he's going crazy. That's not what happened. Like, he's still LeSean McCoy. He's still 31 years old. So I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit with LeSean McCoy takes and think that LeSean McCoy all of a sudden now is going to find his second win and he's all of a sudden going to dominate again. It's just not going to happen. But like I said, like, if you drafted LeSean McCoy before this happened and I would still hold him, because if something happened to Damian Williams, then I think it changes some things. But right now, no, it's still Damian Williams' backfield. They've already said he's a starter. So, like I said, I think LeSean McCoy gets 5 to 10 touches a game.
I mean, it's a win-win for you Chiefs fans either way. If he does somehow get rejuvenated with your EpiPen and Damian Williams also plays well, then you have yourself 2 running backs who are playing really well. When I saw the move, I thought immediately, like, this is a Super Bowl push kind of move. Like, you were so close last year. You couldn't beat out New England. Like, this could put you over the top, only in that it helps keep the running backs fresh. And I think, maybe they get Darwin Thompson mixed in for a couple carries or goes out for a couple routes here or there. But I really like the move. I know he's 31 years old, but LaShawn McCoy is still a pretty decent runner. And I think, especially with Andy Reid, Chiefs are dangerous. They got more dangerous.
I think that's part of what's pushing LaShawn McCoy up is his familiarity with Andy Reid in that scheme, right?
I would imagine so. I mean, he comes in, he probably knows the offense for the most part already, so it's not going to take much ramp-up time.
No, of course. Yeah, I mean, he knows the offense. Like, that's not an issue. Like that. Yeah, I mean, but I just don't. I still think Damian Williams sees probably 60% of the touches in this backfield, and I think that's fine. And I think that people are over. It's crazy. Like if you look at, like I can't remember who it was today. I saw it on Twitter that in high stakes leagues versus just your typical average home draft, like fantasy football calculator ADP, like Damian Williams fell pretty dramatically. Like he would have ended. I think he fell like at least a round, if not a little more. Like people were putting it out there like oh, he went in like the 5th or 6th round of my drafts, in home leagues. But then if you look in high stakes leagues, like he barely fell. He fell a couple spots, of where he was going. And I think that's just we like to be way too over dramatic with what happens in fantasy football or football in general. And every piece of news that happens in the NFL, we just destroy it. We have to break it down. You have to have a take, and we all overreact to it. And that's why the NFL is the king, because there's no other sport where it's like that,
The whole offseason is overreaction theater. It gets a little frustrating by the time we actually get to the regular season, which is this week. If you're watching live, it's tomorrow. If you're listening to the podcast, it was yesterday. Let us know how it went, so we can win some money tomorrow. I don't think that's how it works. But one other thing I wanted to talk about, guys, before we get into week one, before we get into waiver targets, and this does actually have a little week one juice to it. You guys asked me in the past about the Kalen Ballage hype. We just talked about overreaction theater. I said I thought that Ballage was not nearly as good of a runner as Kenyon Drake, and I thought Drake would start. Here we go. Flash forward 2 or 3 weeks. Kenyon Drake was named the starter, and Flores came out and said that they're going to give him the ball a lot, which has some people thinking, okay, 20-plus carries, other people saying 25. The most extreme people being like, oh, he's going to get 30 carries. I don't know a single damn running back in the league that gets 30 carries anymore, but maybe. Anyways, it seems, at least for now, that this is clearly still Kenyon Drake's backfield, and good for you if you got yourself a little bit of a discount, because I do think he fell like a round after the Ballage news came out. So he was like a 6th or 7th round pick at that point, which, if he does get the rock 20-plus times, is pretty amazing value.
It's the same thing. I mean, it's the exact same thing, right? News came out that, the Kalen Ballage thing happened, and, he had a couple big runs. The Kenyon Drake injury happened, and he went from like a 12th, 13th round pick to 8th round pick in like a week, And that's what happens, though. But also, in fantasy football, that's how you win, is avoiding situations like that where players all of a sudden are being overdrafted. I think one of the biggest ones, and I know people may not agree with this, is still going to be Darrell Henderson for me. He's been way too. He's been overdrafted this entire time, and he may not even have a role. Like he may get a couple touches a game, and people are drafting him in the 8th round. Like he's going to be like some serious involvement. And there was a time when he was going like the 6th round, because what ends up happening is people on Twitter, the GOATs like Evan Silva or JJ or some of the other Harmon or whoever in the industry talk about these guys, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they fly. It gets out of control, and then people jump on the bandwagon. And the next thing you know, they're being drafted in the 8th round. Like I still think Darrell Henderson was and is a terrible pick. I could be wrong, but I just don't think. I think people are going to end up regretting that one.
I agree with you. I think he benefited from 2 different things: from the hype train, and from being a rookie running back in fantasy football. They get hyped every single year, regardless of if they look like they have a role or not. It doesn't even matter. They could be drafted by the freaking Giants with Saquon Barkley, and we would still hype the guy up.
And then with them moving up to get him in the draft, and there was that whole narrative. And then, I mean, it is a good scheme fit. That was something I saw whenever I was watching him before the draft, is that he would have been much better in an outside zone with a good offensive line. And that's where he landed. And then with everything being blown up with Todd Gurley's knee and whatnot, I mean that shot him up boards. But Kev, what do you think is the outlook for Gurley's touches? Do you think just
I don't think it changes all that much. I don't think it changes as much as people think it does. I mean, so far, I mean, the things that we've heard out of, from, training camp and practices since training camp is that he looks like Todd Gurley. And he doesn't, he looks like he's 100%. He's good to go. They said that he was, reaching speeds in practice, that they're accustomed to seeing from him. Like, I don't think there's going to be any issue. And I think, again, this could be another situation where we look back at the end of the year and like, wow, we really, overvalued that or overhyped it a little bit too much of how big of a deal, whatever this injury could be. So but it happens every year, and I try to avoid it, and I felt pretty good about avoiding, I have zero Darrell Henderson, none, not in one team, not in ball, nowhere.
We live in a world right now where you could have legitimately gotten Todd Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott if you were at the end of the first round and you took Zeke in the first and Gurley in the second, and you could end up with 2 top 5 backs who were just undervalued at the right time for you to draft them.
I think the play that whole time was just to grab Malcolm Brown in the last round.
Yeah, that's what I did. I drafted Gurley in one league, and I grabbed Malcolm Brown in the 15th round. So let's get into some of our waiver targets. We're going to kind of combine this with the preview of the game. If there's anybody else you want to talk about in the game that your waiver target is a part of, feel free to do so. Cody, I'm actually going to start off with you. We're looking at guys who are less than 50% owned on Yahoo at this point, and we're trying to predict who will be the waiver targets after week 1. So essentially, we're predicting who is going to have a great week 1.
So I'll start at the top of the list here, and I'm going to start with Nyheim Hines, who is currently only 48% owned across Yahoo leagues. The dude, whenever he had the passing role last year, this is a guy we've also been talking about for the past 3 months, I feel like, and somehow now with I don't see losing Andrew Luck as a detriment to dump offs to someone like Nyheim Hines. Most of us play in PPR leagues. I think, you're going to want to make life easy on Jacoby Brissett, and that narrative of dump offs to the RB certainly fits here. So I think as far as a higher guy on this list, Nyheim Hines is going to be shooting up waivers.
You're not worried about the Andrew Luck thing at all?
I mean, in terms of the entire offense, sure. But in terms of, do I think Jacoby Brissett can throw a 2-yard dump off to Nyheim Hines? No, I'm not worried.
So what are we looking at for him in week 1? What kind of production are you looking at? Is that they're at the Chargers?
Yeah, Chargers have a really good defense, even with the loss of Derwin for the foreseeable future. Wouldn't surprise me if we see 5-6 catches out of Hines, maybe a handful of rushes. In PPR leagues as a flex level play, I think that's something you should be targeting.
What do you think about this Colts-Chargers game, Kev?
And two, I can't remember exactly what it was, but if you look at the percent of Marlon Mack's production came in blowout games, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that as much this year.
Tough defense, too, for week 1. Could be a shootout, though. Phil and company love to throw the ball.
Well, it depends on what you look at. Last year, they definitely weren't. They were bottom. Well, not bottom. They were 20th, I think, in the league in pass attempts.
Yeah, with Melvin Gordon there, though.
No, it didn't really change all that much. You have to think about it as a fact that they have they still have a top 10 defense, and they're able to lean on that defense, and you don't have to ask Philip Rivers to go out and throw the ball that much. So it really depends on matchup. Really, it's going to depend on, and I don't know if this is a game where you feel like that they're going to have to go out and throw the ball 40 times, but I think that, Nyheim Hines, I don't love it. from. Yeah, I think he deserves to be rostered in probably more leagues, in PPR formats. But I don't think his ceiling is definitely not as high as maybe it could have been had Andrew Luck been out there. So yeah, I mean, if you're desperate for a running back, which right now, I mean, you just drafted. I hope you're not desperate for a running back. Week one, happening yet, but. Overall, like I think there's just better options out there. Shout out to Jen, who is, a TFA writer. Me and her have teamed up this year and are writing the week one waiver, or we're writing the waiver rankings, which is a little bit different than what you see out there in the mainstream of every article that's written, and it's like top 4 or 5 players, and it's boring, and that's pretty much what everybody does. It's cookie cutter. We kind of have went much deeper. We've done it for the last 2 or 3 years. You probably there's probably 20 to at least 30 players written up every single week between quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Anyways, so we just put that out yesterday or a couple days ago, if you depending on when you're listening to this. But for me, I think after looking at all the ownership percentages and everything else and where people are out there, like there were some players that I was really, really surprised that were still pretty widely available. So I think it really comes down to a position of need, right? Like where, like if you're really hurting at running back or you're hurting at quarterback or not, I mean, or at wide receiver or tight end. It just kind of depends. And even if, like, I think some underrated things, like if you may have drafted a quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers, for example, and they have, arguably a really tough matchup in Chicago, Thursday Night Football. I don't know. Like, it wouldn't surprise me to see Aaron Rodgers go out and only get 14 points week one, where if a player like Jimmy Garoppolo, for example, who has just a delicious matchup going against Tampa Bay. That Tampa Bay defense, we are going to be targeting that defense all year. And I love Jimmy Garoppolo this week. I think he is somebody that you can start not just this week, but for the next few weeks as well. And I really like Jimmy. So if he's available out there, I'm not a big guy of having 2 quarterbacks on your roster, but if it's just for this 1 week or this one matchup, to stream, I think that's a very smart move. Matt Stafford is in a terrific spot. It's crazy that he's so widely available, but they get Arizona week 1. Their defense is going to be horrible. You have to remember that Patrick Peterson's suspended. They've lost Robert Alford, which is the cornerback they brought in. So they're out there bringing guys off the street to try to play defensive back. So Stafford makes a lot of sense there. Josh Allen is another one that you could probably go after. Nick Foles is widely available. They're going to be playing against Kansas City at home. We know anytime you playing the Chiefs, you're going to it's going to be high scoring. Same thing as it was last year. So I think there's a lot of options here. And like I said, if you have a quarterback who doesn't have really the best matchup this week, I think it's a smart move to maybe stream this week with so many players being available. Like I said, like a Jimmy Garoppolo or Stafford or a Josh Allen or something like that.
Let me tell you, Aaron Rodgers could go out there in a freaking wheelchair with one arm and score more points than Jimmy Garoppolo. There's no way I'd be benching somebody like Aaron Rodgers. I get your point. You were saying if you wanted to stream one, but I don't think you can bench A-Rod for somebody like Garoppolo.
I would probably without thinking about it.
Well, then that's why you're going to lose this week here, Kev. That is exactly why you're going to lose.
Really not. Like, can he go out and put up 20, 25? Yeah, of course.
No, Jimmy Garoppolo's freaking terrible. He'd be lucky if he scores 18. He'd be lucky if he scores 15.
That's not true.
You're going to start Jimmy G over Aaron Rodgers. Listen to what you're saying right now. You're
Yeah. We're trying to win.
No, don't listen to that. That's terrible advice. Start Aaron Rodgers. That is terrible.
See now I'm gonna have to. Okay, just give me 1 second.
I don't care about your stats. Just listen to what you're saying. You're telling people to start Aaron Rodgers over Jimmy Garoppolo over Aaron Rodgers. No,
yes,
don't do it.
That's how you lose in fantasy football.
No, that's how you win DFS. That is certainly not how you win in redraft, my friend. Do not start Jimmy
Garoppolo. Matchup for Aaron Rodgers. It's a terrible matchup for Aaron Rodgers.
It doesn't matter. He's Aaron Rodgers.
Who cares?
You probably spent a 6th or 7th round pick on him, so you bench him for Jimmy G? Get out of here. Stupid.
This is a weekly game. It's not
That's beyond stupid. It's weekly in DFS maybe, but in redraft you have to play the long game, my friend. You're not benching Aaron Rodgers.
He didn't say to drop Aaron Rodgers.
No, but you're still not benching Aaron Rodgers for Jimmy G. It's so stupid. Somebody help me in the chat. Am I being insane here, or is this, or is I'm the one that lost my mind and everybody else is like a genius or something? That is overthinking it textbook right there.
We also need help from the chat. We need to come up with like a TFA bet or something we can do for things like this. I mean, to say Jimmy G's not going to score 15 points against one of the worst defenses.
The worst last year? We haven't seen anybody play this year yet, guys. I know they look bad on paper, but we don't know this yet.
I mean, what changes have they made to that defense that would make you think that they're not?
What has Jimmy G done that would make you think he can score 25 points? About the same as what Tampa has done for their defense. Absolutely nothing.
The stretch run that Jimmy had with Marquise Goodwin.
That was 2 years ago.
Okay, he still did it. That's still more.
It was 2 years ago. Come on.
And now he has upgraded weapons. I don't think
I'm telling you, it's a huge mistake if you start Jimmy G over Aaron Rodgers. I'm telling you. We can't spend all day on this, but I'm just telling you, don't do it. Listen, Jamison Crowder's going to blow it up, though, for the Jets. I'm just saying. They got the Bills, a little bit of a tough matchup, but I think that offense loves the slot. I know the offense loves the slot. I watched them for the past, I don't know, how long did we have Gase? I'm trying to block it out of my memory. 3-4 years?
Well, that shouldn't matter. That was 3 or 4 years ago.
It was 3 or 4 years ago. You're right. But it's the same offense. And it's a player versus a coach a little bit different. Jamison Crowder, boys. Only 46% owned in Yahoo. Anybody surprised by that? I feel like everybody and their mother's been talking up Jamison Crowder this year. No?
I mean, I feel like I don't think he really has a ceiling. I think if you're looking for a lower floor, for a higher floor, lower ceiling play, he's fine.
I mean, we're talking waivers after this week, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's a tough matchup. I don't see how the Jets' offensive line is going to be able to hold up against the Bills' defensive line. I think it's going to be a lot of pressure for Darnold.
Well, I think that's why I have Crowder on here, right? I mean, the quick route is going to be either the running back or the slot. So if they send a lot of blitz, we may see Crowder quite a bit in this game.
I don't think they're going to have to blitz.
No, maybe not, but still. You like anybody else from this game though? Jets, Bills? I'm not too excited. I mean, I think you have to play Le'Veon probably, but what do you think about Devin Singletary?
I don't know how that split's gonna work yet. That's not somebody I'd be rushing into my lineups. Josh Allen wouldn't surprise me if he was able to do something against that porous Jets defense.
Another 100-yard game for Josh Allen on the ground.
I'm not sure how confident I'd feel trying to stack him with one of his receivers. But that defense is really bad.
The Jets defense? You think so?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
I thought they improved quite a bit this offseason. Maybe I'm wrong. It is in the Meadowlands. I don't know how much of a home field advantage the Jets really have. Because the Bills are also a New York team. So they tend to travel pretty well down here. Who else are we looking at? Kev, you still with us? Kev's looking up Jimmy Garoppolo's stats right now. Who else you like this week? Besides quarterbacks, I was honestly surprised to see you go towards quarterbacks because usually you avoid them like the plague.
Well, I'm just out here trying to help people win, you know? I mean, that's what we're here to do, you know?
I know, but sometimes it's not helpful, and I have to be like, no, Kev, you're being crazy.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding. You can go over to the website and check out the rankings because I have Aaron Rodgers actually ranked 10th this week. So
that's the proof right there.
I have Jameis Winston at 3, by the way, in that same game. So excited.
49ers, Tampa Bay. It's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, I have Jimmy Garoppolo at 8.
They're both pretty bad defenses. It wouldn't shock me to see a shootout there.
Yeah,
it's one of the highest over-unders on the week. So,
what do you guys think of this Gio Bernard signing? Sign this guy to a new 2-year deal. I mean, is that it's a new coach, so we really don't know how they're going to use him. But that has to say they plan on using him a little bit more, right?
I mean, I think they said that this offseason already. They came out and said that they wanted to get him more involved in the offense. Probably take some of the little bit of the load off Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, had a couple scares last year. So, no, I don't think that's a crazy move at all. I think it was smart. I don't think they gave him a whole lot of money. So, what is it, like a 2-year, $10 million deal, something like that?
I don't know. I should have wrote that down. It's
Anyway.
2 years and some odd money. It's an extension for a guy who everybody else thought was dead. So
the best, in my opinion, handcuffs out there if you want to. I think it's too early to be really messing around with handcuffs, but he's somebody that could easily have standalone value as well as a pass catcher out of the backfield. I think, like I've said before, I think this offense is going to be better than was last year, which isn't hard to do. But I definitely think that he is going to have a little bit more involvement in the offense. And so he's somebody that I definitely would want because if something were to happen to Joe Mixon, we've seen Gio Bernard be able to lead this backfield. And so he's somebody that I have quite a bit of interest in, depending on how deep your league is, depending on how many bench spots you have. 'Cause that's what really matters the most. There's some people that only have 5 bench spots. Like I really want to maximize those spots as much as I can. If you're in a league that, where you might have 7 or 8 bench spots, you might be more inclined to taking some of these other players. But right now, running back for me, I think number 1 is Justin Jackson. A few days ago, yesterday, he was at 48% owned in Yahoo leagues, which is just insane. He is right now my running back 38 on the week. Like he's borderline flex play. You could play him week 1 because we know Melvin Gordon's out. He's going to be involved in the offense. Good matchup. So I think Justin Jackson is probably the number 1. If he's available in any league, you need to be running out and trying to grab him. Another one that I'm really surprised about is Dion Lewis, that he's so widely available. Like it's like Dion Lewis is dead. We headed into last year, and the man was like, it was hype city around Dion Lewis. Derrick Henry was dead. We've just done a complete 180 here. But Dion Lewis, I think, had like 6 games last year of double-digit fantasy points. And the right matchups, if you look at certain matchups each week and feel like that it has like shootout potential, like they're playing the Texans or something like that, or they're going to have to put up a lot of points, Dion Lewis is the guy that I want there because I think he is going to have quite a bit. He has that role secure as the pass catching back in that offense, and I think he's still going to have some weeks. I think a lot of people are expecting that Derrick Henry is just going to get 20 touches a week, and I think while the Titans might want to do that in certain matchups, they're just not going to be able to do that. So I definitely think Dion Lewis definitely should be rostered in more leagues than what he is. Past that, I think the next guy that I think you can make a very strong argument with is Dare Ogunbowale. We've talked about him on the podcast before. A couple weeks ago, we talked about him, if not a little bit further back. Kind of before the hype started for him, we were kind of on that. And he has been all but secured the third down role. They cut Andre Ellington. They did sign TJ Logan, but I mean, he's really done nothing in the league. But he is basically the third down back on a team that has a horrible defense that they're going to be playing from positive game scripts pretty much every game because they're going to be behind. They're going to have to throw the ball. And I think he's in a fantastic spot. If you look at both Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones, neither one of them are any good at catching the ball out of the backfield. So I think that this could very well be a very lucrative spot for him. And I think that he's really the running back to own in Tampa Bay right now, unless they kind of pull a rabbit out of a hat and they make a trade for Melvin Gordon or something crazy like that. I think that Dare definitely needs to be owned in more than what he is. I took him actually in my home league draft. Not that anybody cares over the weekend, but I really like him. And I think that he's somebody that could end up being kind of a steal and maybe even like a Phillip Lindsay from last year.
Listen, Arians talks up running backs like nobody else. So he was like, when he signed T.J. Logan, he's like, learn his name. That's what he said to me.
Yeah, the thing I like about Dare though is that he actually has proven it on the field. Like through preseason, like he's looked tremendous. He looks like the best running back in this backfield. I don't know. It's crazy too because I think a lot of people have probably had no idea who he was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like literally had no idea who he was, and he actually was.
He's been in the league for a hot second.
I think a lot of people even probably thought that he was drafted this year, and he wasn't. He actually came in the league last year, bounced around to some different practice squads, and now he's back. He actually started in Tampa Bay, left, and now he's back. So I know when he came out of his combine, he tested really horribly. I think he ran like a 4.65 40, like really average burst and agility. But he just looks like a completely different guy this preseason. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he got in better shape or what have you, but he just looks tremendous. And like I said, we've always known that he's a tremendous pass catcher. He had, I think, 11% target share while he was in Wisconsin, which was like 85th percentile. So there's a lot to like here in this profile. And in a backfield with literally nothing, with Ronald Jones, who looks just as terrible this year as he did last year, and Peyton Barber, who is the quintessential Jag, if there ever was one. Like, this is the spot to really target. So I really like him. And then, some other guys that you could probably think about would be like a Chase Edmonds, who, we've talked about how if this offense is as high powered or as fast paced as they want it to be, Chase Edmonds could have standalone value on a weekly basis. And then guys like Alexander Madison is available in over 50% of ESPN or Yahoo leagues. Jalen Richard is definitely going to be involved as a pass catcher. Justice Hill. So there's a lot of guys here that I think that are still pretty widely available, but the ones that I think that can have the most immediate impact are Justin Jackson, Dion Lewis, Dare Ogunbowale, and then maybe some Chase Edmonds or a Ty Montgomery, something like that.
You're taking a chance to start in Justin Jackson in week 1. I have him in a league, and I'm like, I just don't know. Seems risky, but he also maybe the best week to start him.
It's risky. I will say that. I mean, because I think he's definitely going to be involved in the offense, and I think that he could end up seeing 10 to 15 touches in this game. I think that's in the realm of possibility here, but it does come with risk. Like I said, I think I have him like 38, so I have him right outside of a flex, or depending on how many flexes you have. So I think he's definitely in the flex conversation this week. But for me, I think right now, I probably wouldn't unless it would just really depend on what you have. But I can't imagine, week 1 that you probably have some better options than to go with him. At the very least, I'd want to wait and see.
Yeah, it would just depend on what options you would have available. I think he's capable of taking some of the targets away from Eckler. Eckler is explosive. I think he's perfect in that kind of like change of pace role like that. But Justin Jackson did not have a collegiate season with fewer than 21 catches, so he's more than capable. And I think that 10 to 12, 10 to 15 touch range is right on, like Kev said.
All right, so who else do we got here? Quite a few receivers, guys. Cole Beasley's only 6% owned. Albert Wilson's only 8% owned. Who knows what that Miami offense is going to give us? Adam Humphries, 15%. We haven't seen him at all in the preseason, so it's really hard to know what to expect. Plus, Marcus Mariota has not looked very good. DK Metcalf at 35%. Tyrell Williams, 37%. James Washington, 38%. And we already talked about Crowder. Any of these guys really kind of tickle your fancy? I'm a little surprised to see a few of them. James Washington's been talked up quite a bit as a sleeper option, so to see his own percentage so low is a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Washington that low owned, especially with how often everyone's been talking this offseason about who's going to be the number 2 in Pittsburgh. I'm going to look up Dante Moncrief and see where he's sitting just to compare it. But out of the guys you just rattled off, DK Metcalf at 35% is someone I'd be looking at. He's not going to be someone we can count on volume week to week, but I like having guys like DK on my bench. If you're looking, you're looking across at your matchup, you have someone who's stacked, or they had somebody go off in the Thursday night game, and you kind of need kind of a YOLO play. DK Metcalf can be one of those guys who goes 3 catches for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns on a weekly basis. And then Albert Wilson down in Miami. That team is going to be playing from behind a lot. I saw a blurb that came out about they're planning on putting Wilson back in the slot more often a lot. I saw a blurb that came out about they're planning on putting Wilson back.
Why is he repeating? What are you doing over there?
That was weird.
Yeah, Cody just repeated himself.
Actually, I'm from the future, and but no, game script should favor Albert Wilson down there. I saw something they were going to put him back in the slot. The only other guy they have to really compete with him in the slot is Jakeem Grant. So the volume should certainly be there for Albert Wilson, and I think he ran maybe like a sub 4.4 or close to a 4.4 flat. So he's athletic. We saw what he could do in limited play last year. Wouldn't surprise me if he's one that jumps up to a higher percent.
I have no idea what to expect from this Dolphins offense in general, to be honest with you. It looks like they're going to be really bad. On paper, in person, and everywhere, it doesn't look like it's going to be a good season. I'm not generally one to jump on teams that look terrible on paper, but this team is obviously very, very young and very, very inexperienced. It's going to be a rough year to be a Dolphins fan. But we all know that going into it, so whatever. Let's jump into some bold predictions. I want to hear from you fellers on what your biggest, boldest predictions for this year are.
So I'll jump in here. Mine is Justice Hill is going to outscore Mark Ingram, and that is sans an Ingram injury. So just Ingram staying healthy. I'm not saying that Justice Hill is going to come in after an injury or if Ingram is playing poorly. I just think he outplays him. Probably not going to see it maybe like the first 2 weeks, but maybe by week 4, I think we're going to see Justice Hill taking the majority of the touches ahead of Mark Ingram, and he outscores him. I think it's probably like a seven round difference in where they're getting drafted right now.
You really don't like Mark Ingram this year, and I hope you're wrong because I own him everywhere.
I mean, he's fine. I just think Justice Hill he's the much better athlete. I think he's a much better fit for the offense. I mean, when you're talking about RPOs and that sort of thing, like I don't think that's Mark Ingram's game. And if you look at how the Ravens have drafted over the past 2 years, they're getting speed and they're getting athletes. I mean, Marquise Brown, we all know what he can do. Miles Boykin, I think he was one of the, in terms of the combine, one of the best athletes we've seen at the wide receiver position over the past couple of years. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, Hayden Hurst, Mark Ingram, Mark Andrews, all athletic. So I think Justice Hill is just the better fit for this offense. Mark Ingram.
Cody's doing some real futuristic shit here, man. It's got to be Kevin messing around with it, hitting the play button on one of these streaming things.
He's been way too silent.
Yeah, he's up to no good over there.
Something tells me we're about to see a Kevin Steele comment come up across the bottom talking about how awesome Fantasy Wrath 13 is, and we could all be listening to him.
He calls him Kevin Steele too.
Hey, there happens to be someone that has the same name as me. I don't know what to tell you, okay? Like, guy clearly has a good taste, and I don't know what else to say, you know?
Do you guys think it's a bold prediction to say that Curtis Samuel outscores DJ Moore? Is that bold? Is that hot?
It may be a hot take. I don't know how bold it is, because I think a lot of fantasy analysts are saying that already. I think Justice Hill outscoring Mark Ingram without an Ingram injury is pretty bold.
I thought about rolling with the Curtis Samuel one first, but then I was thinking, like, is that really that bold?
That's like on the Scove scale, like that's not even. I don't even know if that's a jalapeno.
The Samuels over Moore.
So it's like a banana pepper.
They're like going pretty similar, right? It's like a bell pepper.
It's a bell pepper? You didn't even get a banana pepper. You got a bell
I got a dirty fucking green bell pepper.
Yeah. It's not even spicy. It's sweet. It's probably rotted a little bit.
Very pleasant.
Yeah, there's a little hole in the side of it.
I mean, bell peppers go well in chili though. Like delicious,
Yes.
So,
this is going to become a food podcast nowadays. Ladies and gentlemen, the Fantasy Authority Food Network.
Do you go onion in that chili as well, Kev?
Yes, you have to go, dude. I make the best chili ever. I won it at a chili cook-off a couple times at work. It's fantastic. It is copyrighted. So
is it fire?
It is delicious. It is onion. It is ground beef, and I put maybe do some spicy hot Italian sausage or something like that in there.
Whoa! It's copywritten. You're just giving away your secrets right now. This is like the Bush baked beans commercials.
I think that's the key, Kev, is mixing your meats, having the ground beef and like
It's always key to mix the meat. Just mix them.
You gotta be. You have to be careful when you mix the meats. But when it comes to chili, you gotta mix the meats.
Hey, I mean, I'm just saying though, chili is by far one of my favorite meals, especially in the wintertime. People who cook it in like summer, like they
sociopaths
deported out of this country and never allowed to come back because chili is 100% a fall meal. And I would like people to, if they disagree with that take, to reach out to me on Twitter at FantasyRat13, and we will fight in these streets because chili is a winter meal.
The mean streets of Kansas City.
Hey, it is crazy out here. Okay, Killer City, KC here. Okay,
good luck, and remember, the key is to mix your meats. That's the key.
So, I think I got a couple bold takes, bold predictions here. One being that Josh Gordon finishes as a wide receiver 1 this year. Not the wide receiver 1, just a wide receiver 1, and plays all 16 games. And I definitely think that's in the realm of possibility for him this year. We saw him last year on really, coming into this team on very little, had very little time to pick up the offense. Still finishes, I think, during those weeks was a wide receiver 2. So I think wide receiver 1 is definitely in the range of possibilities. But finishing all 16 games, I think somewhere in the range of 12 to 1,300 yards and 10 plus touchdowns is certainly there. And then another one I have is Aaron Jones finishes as top 5 running back this year.
I think the hot take with both of those would be both those guys playing 16 games. I think that's the bold prediction.
I am a fan of the oft injured players, I guess, or oft suspended, one or the other.
Often suspended and or injured players.
Often off the field.
Perhaps another bold take, I guess, just for week 1 would be my play Jimmy G over Aaron Rodgers and win week 1.
This is a week 1 bold take. I must say that I am half expecting Josh Gordon to be suspended by the time we finish this podcast.
You shut your mouth. Shut your mouth and you take that back right now.
I own him everywhere too, so it would decimate my teams, but my goodness, he's so hard to trust.
He is the man. He is always the man. So, yeah. And, I feel like we didn't really talk about tight ends, but I just want to say real quick that 100%, I think Jimmy Graham is certainly I was surprised that he was as widely owned as he is. He's certainly not the player that he once was, but he is. It's a little surprising some of his numbers last year because I think he's actually better than what his numbers showed at him as. So he basically finished 6th among tight ends in targets with 91, 9th in yards, 10th in air yards, and 30th. And the big problem was touchdowns. I mean, he was 30th in touchdowns. He only had 2 touchdowns last year. So I think some positive regression in the touchdown department can come his way. He did receive, I think, 11 red zone targets last year. So he definitely has an opportunity to grow on that. He basically averaged 8.2 fantasy points per game. He finishes tight end 12 in PPR formats. I think 100% he's definitely somebody that should be rostered on more teams. Especially in a Green Bay offense with tethered Aaron Rodgers. I think this offense takes a big step forward this year, which was another issue for him. Aaron Rodgers was down on touchdowns as well. So I think he's certainly somebody that should be in play. And then my guy is probably Darren Waller. This dude is just an athletic freak. Former tight end, played with the Ravens and then got in some trouble, was suspended all of 2017. Came back last year, was very limited because of obviously Jared Cook, but he steps into that Jared Cook role now as a starting tight end. I think this is something that if you look at the first 2 weeks, even if you just want to stream him for the first couple of weeks, I think that's certainly in play, especially if you drafted a tight end that has some rough matchups start the season, unless it's, Kelsey or, Ertz or, those guys, OJ Howard, George Kittle, obviously. All those players are certainly, you're starting those guys. But Darren Waller, I really like him. He's like 6'4", 6'5", ran a blazing fast 40. He's just an athletic freak and gets the Broncos, who are terrible against tight ends, and then also against the Chiefs, who gave up the most fantasy points to the position last year. Nothing's really changed there. So Darren Waller, for me, is somebody who's widely available now, who's probably not going to be before too long. There's not a whole lot in that offense. He's probably the 3rd target behind Antonio Brown, who, by the way, just can't keep himself out of trouble, who's already been fined because he's missed practice. Great job, Antonio Brown. And then you have Tyrell Williams, and then who else, right? So I really like those two. So if either one of those are available and you're kind of, you stream tight ends or you picked a late round tight end, those two would be two that I would really want to get my hands on early.
They got the gym teacher, Hunter Renfrow, bro.
Yeah.
Did you go check out that side-by-side I told you guys about last week?
Yes, he really looks like a 17-year-old kid is really what he looks like.
Hunter Renfrow side-by-side with DK Metcalf. Oh, my goodness. It's terrible. Renfrow looks like he hasn't picked up a freaking weight his entire life.
So just real quick on Darren Waller at the Combine. Measured in at 6'6", 238, and ran a 4.46 40 at that size, which is just absurd. On mockdraftable.com, his top 2 comparisons for wide receiver, Mike Evans and Michael Floyd.
And extremely humble if you care about that. He was okay with his 64 overall rating in Madden. So we do have some questions coming in on the chat, guys. I will get to my bold prediction afterwards because it's probably the best one anyways. Ryan Foster says, what's your guys' take on Le'Veon Bell? Well, Ryan, we do have a video on it, but we can't address it again. Kev, you I think are the most down on Bell out of 3 of us, if I remember correctly. So I'll let you go ahead and start us off.
I mean, my take really doesn't change on him all that much. I think he's fine, probably where you got him if you haven't drafted already, which, I mean, you better hurry up because the season starts tomorrow. But like I could see a scenario where he returns value and ends up being a top 5 tight end. I think that's definitely there for him, and or tight end, top 5 running back. I just got done talking about tight ends. But I just wouldn't bet on it. I just don't think there has been some talk lately that maybe this Jets team is going to be much more fast paced than what the Dolphins were under Gase. That the biggest, I guess he said the biggest issue with why they were so slow paced is because that he just didn't have any talent. And that's why that they, played the way they did, which makes some sense if you're not, really feeling confident about the guys that you have there to really kind of slow things down, to keep games in reach. So I think that certainly is there, because you go back and look at his time, obviously with Peyton Manning, which is completely different. Though during that time, he was, those teams were much more fast paced. So for him, I do feel like that there's definitely some red flags there. There's some issues that we have, but I do feel like that there is something, there is some upside there, but I still feel the same way. I think he ends up being somebody that's kind of like meh by the end of the year. I could be wrong, but for me, it's just hard for me to really trust him and feel I feel as good about him as I did a lot of the other players, but wouldn't be surprised if I was wrong. I feel like that his probably medium projection is probably somewhere. I think he still rushes probably for over 1,000 yards. I don't think he gets the same target share or target volume that he got in Pittsburgh. This is just a different offense than what we saw in Pittsburgh, obviously, with this going from Antonio Brown, on the field and at times, or Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown, or even before that with some of the other guys that they've had in that offense over the years. Now going to Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold. Though I love Sam Darnold, but the rest of these weapons here are just nothing that scares you. So I think teams are going to really be doing what they can to slow him down, and behind a really bad offensive line. So, like I said, I still think that he's borderline RB1, and like I said, if he finishes top 5, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah, I'm with Kev. Just a lot of questions there. We've never seen him behind a bad offensive line. Yeah, I think if he finishes as an RB1 this year, it's going to be on the back of catches. And I don't know. There's just too many questions there for me. So I'm also, especially he's going at 108, I think right now. Yeah, 108 and half PPR according to Fantasy Football Calculator. So just too many questions for me, too much uncertainty. So I mean, going behind him, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Todd Gurley, I'd rather have all three of them over Lev.
I like him. I like I said in our RB1 versus RB2 debate, I would be fine with him at the end of the first round, early second. That would, of course, assume he slides a little bit, which I think some people have seen. He's just a really good talent, and I know we don't know anything about the situation. We saw Adam Gase in Miami, but then, of course, there's all this talk about he didn't have the talent down there. Okay. I don't know. He's too good. I like him better than Chubb and Cook. I don't like him better than Gurley, but I'm also much higher on Gurley than most people are, I think. So I would still take him in the end of the first round and feel pretty good about it. Jet Aslani has a trade question for us. Kev, you have the wrong chat thing on the screen. The next one down is the trade. He wants to know if he should trade DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Sony Michel, and Miles Sanders for Antonio Brown, Christian McCaffrey, and Chris Godwin. His worry here is that he feels he's lacking in the running back department. I'm not sure why you would get rid of 2 running backs for one. I get it, CMC is much better than Sony Michel and Miles Sanders, but you're also losing 2 top wide receivers for AB, who is a little out there, and then Chris Godwin, who's a fan favorite of the show. I personally wouldn't go with this trade, though, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're giving up way too much to try and just shore up your running back position. I mean, would it really surprise anybody if D-Hop and Evans finished 1 and 2 in receiver scoring at the end of the year?
No. Well, at least it wouldn't me.
And there's always a running back who pops on the waiver wire, so you just have to be diligent in keeping an eye out for trends in terms of snap share, who's starting to get the touches. You can piece that together much easier than giving up D-Hop and Evans just to try and get a peace of mind at the running back position.
He kind of has one of those in Miles Sanders already, right? I mean,
yeah, I think Miles Sanders is going to be the lead back by the end of the year. If you can get through with Michelle, I mean, he mentioned he has Damian Williams, he has Matt Breida. I mean, I'd be fine rotating those pieces in, finding the guy on the waiver wire, and then riding those two receivers.
Biggest concern there is if the Eagles trade for Melvin Gordon, which it looks like they're maybe the only ones that even have a decent offer out there for him. So we'll see. Kev, you doing this trade? It's 2-0, 3-0 for no go.
Oh, I just can't. I get the allure of getting CMC, and I think Chris Godwin, as we've talked about a million times, I love that dude. And I think there's even a possibility that he outscores Mike Evans this year. But I can't get rid of DeAndre Hopkins and Mike Evans and Sony Michel and Miles Sanders. For one, you're getting Antonio Brown, who, again, I don't know if he's even going to play out the whole year. Like, this dude has been completely nuclear right now. Like we just talked about, he's already been fined for missing practices, and the season hasn't even started yet. I don't even know what's going to happen or how things are going to go once the bullets start flying and the Raiders start losing games like they're probably going to do. And so, like, he is a big red flag for me that I didn't draft him anywhere this year, and I love Antonio Brown. And
freaking time bomb though.
I let him go. I didn't keep him, and so it's crazy. But like, I don't know what's going on with him or what's happening, but he's just way too risky to even touch. So, and then like I said, CMC is amazing and somebody that I would definitely want to have in my back pocket. Obviously, or have not my back pocket, but somebody that he could end up being the number one running back this year. No, that would not surprise one person. He's being drafted as the number 2 running back off the board. But you're giving up likely the number 1 running back or number 1, very well, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, who could be a top 5 wide receiver, Sony Michel, who I have trouble with, but this is a half-point PPR, that I think that also takes a factor into it as well. And they've said that they would like to get Sony Michel more involved as a pass catcher. And then, Miles Sanders, I love Miles Sanders, and I think Miles Sanders is definitely going to end up being the lead, the lead back by the end of the year in that offense. So that's just way too much to give up.
He does follow up here by saying, what if he could keep Miles Sanders? Would you do it then?
No, because I don't think there's any reason to give up D-Hop and Evans in that trade.
Yeah, it's definitely more alluring if you can keep Sanders, but I still don't want to swap 2 known productive receivers for an Antonio Brown who could just go off the deep end at any second.
And that's my biggest problem with this, right? Like, if we didn't have this with Antonio Brown, like, even if just Antonio Brown was just traded to the Raiders and that's all happened, and like he showed up to training camp and everything happened normally, like, then I would be much more intrigued with this, right? Because Christian McCaffrey could outscore all of these people, all these guys, and just have a monster year like we kind of saw him last year. So I get the want to acquire Christian McCaffrey, but my problem really is the Antonio Brown part of the scenario. Because if he doesn't factor in, and like I said, by week 10, 11, he just becomes such a, I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders end up having to cut him or they have to trade him or whatever happens. Like, things have just gotten crazy with him that it just makes me way too hard to really want to roster him. And I'm much more like contrarian, much more high risk than most, and I can't even mess with him just because like he's such a malcontent right now, and every week it seems like there's something new that's happening with him.
Well, and there was a warning, right? I mean, he had teammates when he got paid in Pittsburgh come out and say that once he got paid, he got this monster ego. And then Oakland was like, yeah, let's go pay him more. This dude's he's gonna run himself right out of town. It's gonna be insane. Anyways, thank you so much for the questions, Ryan Foster and Jet Aslani. If you have any more questions, make sure you hit us up on Slack. You can get in there at FF_authority on Twitter. We will add you to the Slack channel, and you can ask your questions 24/7. Not only us, the rest of our team, the rest of the Slackers in there can help you out with that. I want to get to my bold predictions, guys, real quick, and then we'll get into our Super Bowl picks. So my bold prediction for this year was that 3 quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Jared Goff, will throw for 40 or more touchdowns this season. The last time that happened was in 2011, where Breeze threw for 46, Rodgers 45, and Matthew Stafford, if you can believe it, threw for 41.
That kind of surprised me when I saw you had that on the show sheet. I was like, that doesn't seem that crazy for 3 guys that threw over 40. And then I saw last time that happened was 8 years ago. No, that was surprising. That was a nice little nugget.
Yeah, so when I was doing the research, it surprised me too. 2 years ago, the leading quarterback only threw like 27 touchdowns. The touchdown production for quarterbacks has been very, I'm sure if you put it in a graph, it would just be like kind of roller coastering. All right, guys, let's close out the show with some Super Bowl picks. Who are you predicting to go to and to win the Super Bowl in Miami this year? I believe it's Super Bowl 54 in Miami. South Florida, whatever. Cody, you want to start it off?
So this isn't actually what I think is going to happen. I think this would be a super interesting matchup. Anthony, we actually had the same answer if I was being truthful on this, but just to give something different to throw out there, how awesome would it be to see Cleveland versus New Orleans? I just think that'd be a super intriguing matchup. Give us more offense than we had last year. I mean, if you told me to put any money on this, I would give you 0. But I just think this would be something that'd be super intriguing if we could get the storyline of. I mean, Cleveland has the pieces. I don't think they're going to be able to put that together this year and ride that to the Super Bowl. But I mean, if we could get the narrative of everything's clicking at the right time, like that defense looks nasty. They obviously have all the pieces on offense. And then if we can get New Orleans to make it back to the Super Bowl, let Drew Brees win one more, and then right off to the sunset.
Those are two sneaky good defenses, too. It'd be an interesting battle.
My man, Ryan Foster.
Yeah, so Ryan Foster in the chat also had the Saints and Cleveland going to the Super Bowl. You guys are on the same page there. I went with a much more predictable one. I went with the Super Bowl that I wish we would have had last year, and we should have had last year. Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Rams. I definitely would be on board with this powerhouse of an offensive performance. Patrick Mahomes versus Jared Goff. Who can gunsling it better? Probably Mahomes on paper, but that Rams defense is pretty dang good.
I like it. As the residence Chiefs fan, I can't do it. Like I feel like I'm jinxing them if I pick them to go to the Super Bowl. So I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to pick somebody else, and then so I can not feel like I jinxed them, because it just feels like something that would happen. So as much as I think the Chiefs are definitely are in Super Bowl contention, that they definitely are right there with the Patriots and some other teams, just for my sake, my sanity, I'm not going to take them. I'm not going to jinx it, because this is probably one of the legitimate first seasons that the Chiefs that I can remember in my entire life, and I am 34 years old, that the Kansas City Chiefs are actually a Super Bowl favorite. Like, not like local Super Bowl where people are like, oh, the Chiefs are going to go to the Super Bowl this year, like actual national level where people are actually picking them to go to the Super Bowl. It's crazy. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to pick them. I'm not going to jinx it. So I'm going to go with the New England Patriots, because I don't know how else if it's not the Chiefs, it's damn sure going to be the damn Patriots again. I think the whole world is rooting against them unless you're a Patriots fan. So I'm going to go Patriots, and I'm going to go a little rematch with the Atlanta Falcons.
Wow.
Ooh.
Who's winning? Falcons dominated this time
I'm going to take the Falcons finally getting the dub, getting their
I still can't believe they lost that game. Unreal.
I know, right?
So final thoughts, guys. Ryan Foster had one last question before we go ahead and sign off. So let's get this one out of the way and in the books. He says he drafted Amari Cooper in the early rounds in hopes of Ezekiel Elliott flaking out, but with Zeke signing his contract today, how do you guys think that will affect Cooper?
I don't think it affects him at all. If anything, I'd be more worried about the foot. But he was a full participant today. That seems like that's not going to be an issue. But, I mean, Zeke isn't McCaffrey. He's not going to go out there and get 120 targets. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And it probably helps Amari more than it hurts him, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think it helps Amari. They like to pound the rock to open up the pass, and that leaves Amari Cooper much more open when the safeties are in the box rather than playing over top.
For me, it has no effect on it whatsoever. I mean, you can make an argument that it helps him, just having his presence out there, another weapon in the offense. But no, I'm not worried about it whatsoever. The foot thing has been, I think we talked about this last week, but Dr. Chow has come out, who is somebody that I trust with these sorts of things, has said that nobody should be worried about the plantar fasciitis thing at all. That there's nothing to worry about there. That he's good to go. He's fine. Not to worry about that. So with that, like, I don't even think a foot thing is really an issue. So yeah, I think Amari Cooper. Well, I think it actually knocked down his ADP a little bit because I think people were a little bit nervous about that, and the whole foot thing and everything else that was going on there. It actually knocked him down a little bit in ADP. So I feel like that he is somebody that easily can be a wide receiver 1, and another guy that is probably has some contention as a top 5 wide receiver this year.
Absolutely. I love Amari Cooper down there in Dallas. All right, guys, any final thoughts before the season begins and we are swamped from, now until February?
No, man, I'm just excited. Everyone is listening. Everyone is live with us. Thank you guys for following us throughout the off season. Make sure you're hitting us up on Twitter and Slack and jumping in live with us, and I'm going to try and help you out this year. I'm excited.
The only thing I would say, and just because I see a lot of this on Twitter lately, is stop telling people that their team sucks. Everybody's super excited for the season, and when you put people down at the beginning of the year, you give them nothing to look forward to. Like, I think most people who are fans of bad teams, those of us who like the Dolphins and the Titans and the Bucks or whatever, we know that the team's not very good. But let us live in our little land of freaking delusion for a couple weeks. It's not going to hurt you, okay? It's not going to murder you. Kev, you lived it for 30
years. We need to knock you back down to
You lived it for 34 years, and the Chiefs are suddenly good, and now you get to talk stuff. Let us just live in our bubble. Let us do it. Yeah, this is too much negativity in the world for that. Just let people enjoy their team, even if it sucks. That's all I got to say.
Hey, but at least you're going to get that. Hey, actually, I'm upset we never talked about the Laramie Tunsil trade. I felt like that could have been a really good talking point today on today's show of the Laramie Tunsil trade and Kenny Stills moving on to Houston. We never talked about that. But
yeah, upset about it at first, kind of grown on me, but still, I mean, left tackles are hard to find, and we traded one away, so yay. Go
hey,
Fam.
you guys got a haul for that.
We got a haul. We did, but like they're so hard to find. We could spend both those picks on left tackles and miss on both. That's how hard they are to find. So I wasn't crazy about getting rid of Tunsil. Kenny Stills, the writing was kind of on the wall. There was a lot going on there, but I love that guy though. Kenny Stills is the man.
Playlist.
Yeah,
that Jay-Z playlist that got him out of town.
Yeah, that dude's the man off the field, though. I know I've said it on this show before, but like, if you like to do charitable work, follow Kenny Stills. That guy's the man. Anyways, let us know on Twitter at @FF_authority what you thought of today's show, what you think of Week 1. What are your predictions going into Week 1? What's your Super Bowl prediction? What are your bold predictions? And who are you expecting to be waiver targets after Week 1? Also, make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button on YouTube and Twitch and Periscope if they have one. I should have figured that out before this show. And if you're following along on the podcast, make sure you jam that subscribe button on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your podcast software of choice is. Once again, if you want to join us for the full season, get into that Slack channel, hit us up on Twitter at @FF_authority. We will get you into Slack as soon as we can. You get 24/7 access to us, free of charge. So for Kevin Steele and Cody Kutzer, I'm Anthony Pinzone. This has been the Fantasy Authority Podcast Week 1 preview. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, embrace the debate, but have fun with it. Take care, everyone.
Mix those meats.
Oh, goodness.